The night he finally broke was quiet in a way that felt cruel. The office lights hummed above empty desks, rain traced slow scars down the glass, and a single father stood frozen between who he had been and who he was trying to become. He lowered his voice, not because he was afraid to be heard, but because everything inside him was trembling. He whispered that they were both adults, but he could not do this anymore, and in that moment the woman who had power over his job, his schedule, and his silence went completely still. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who keep going even when life feels unbearable, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Ethan Carter had learned how to survive by shrinking himself. He woke before dawn every day, packing lunches with careful precision, tying shoelaces with tired hands, and leaving notes on the counter for his daughter Lily that said he loved her more than anything in the world. He worked harder than anyone in the building, not because he wanted praise, but because missing a single paycheck meant missing rent, missing groceries, missing the fragile balance he had built after his wife died. The world did not stop for grief, and Ethan had learned that lesson early. He carried it with him into the elevator every morning, into meetings where his ideas were praised but his time was never respected, and into late nights when the building emptied and his phone buzzed with reminders that he still had to pick Lily up from his neighbor before bedtime. His boss, Victoria Hale, was admired from a distance. She was brilliant, commanding, and known for turning struggling departments into shining successes. People said she demanded excellence, and Ethan believed that at first. When she asked him to stay late, he stayed. When she gave him weekend deadlines, he met them. When she began to lean on him emotionally, venting about pressure from above and a lonely apartment that waited for her at night, he listened quietly, telling himself that being understanding was part of being professional. But lines blur slowly, not all at once, and Ethan was too tired to notice how much of himself he was giving away. The pressure did not come from a single moment. It built like water behind a dam. There were last-minute schedule changes that meant Lily ate dinner without him. There were messages sent late at night that demanded immediate responses. There were expectations that he would always be available, always understanding, always grateful for the opportunity. Ethan told himself that this was the price of stability, that his daughter deserved a roof over her head more than he deserved peace. He told himself that adults made sacrifices, and that being a good father meant swallowing discomfort without complaint. At home, Lily noticed everything. She noticed when he stared too long at nothing, when his hands shook as he poured cereal, when he smiled but his eyes stayed far away. She was 8 years old enough to miss her mother deeply, old enough to sense when her father was carrying more than he should. On nights when Ethan came home late, she would fall asleep on the couch, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, waiting for the sound of his keys. Ethan would carry her to bed, breathing in the scent of shampoo and safety, promising himself that tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow kept not coming. The night everything changed arrived without warning. A deadline had been moved up again. Ethan's neighbor had called, apologetic, saying she could not watch Lily past a certain hour. Rain was falling hard, and traffic crawled. Ethan's chest felt tight as he stared at the glowing screen, calculating minutes and consequences. He asked for flexibility, carefully, respectfully, explaining that his daughter needed him. The response he received was not cruel, but it was dismissive, wrapped in language about professionalism and commitment. Something inside him cracked then, not loudly, but completely. When Victoria stepped into his office to discuss expectations, she expected compliance. She expected the quiet nod she had grown used to. Instead, she saw a man who looked exhausted beyond words, a man whose shoulders sagged under invisible weight. Ethan spoke softly, choosing his words with care, saying that they were both adults, that he understood pressure and responsibility, but that he could not keep living like this. He said he was a father first, that his daughter needed him whole, not hollowed out by endless demands. There were no accusations in his voice, only truth, raw and unpolished. Victoria froze because no one had ever spoken to her like that before. She froze because she suddenly saw the cost of her expectations written on someone else's face. She froze because in Ethan's quiet resolve, she recognized something she had lost long ago. The room felt smaller, heavier, as the rain pressed against the windows like an audience holding its breath. Ethan did not know what would happen next. He only knew that he had finally chosen honesty over fear. For the first time in years, he felt strangely calm, as if whatever came after would at least be real. He gathered his things slowly, preparing himself for consequences, for the possibility of unemployment, for another hard chapter. But as he turned to leave, something unexpected happened. Victoria asked him to sit down. Not with authority, but with uncertainty. She listened as Ethan explained his life, his mornings and nights, the way grief had reshaped him, the way love for his daughter kept him moving even when he wanted to stop. He spoke of missed school events, of guilt that never slept, of the constant calculation between being a good employee and a good father. He did not ask for pity. He asked for understanding. That conversation did not fix everything in an instant. Real life rarely does. But it cracked open a door. Victoria admitted, quietly, that she had been so focused on results that she had forgotten people. She spoke of her own loneliness, of success that felt empty, of pressure that made her blind. In that office, two adults finally saw each other clearly, not as roles or titles, but as human beings trying to survive. The weeks that followed were different. Ethan's schedule shifted slightly. Deadlines became conversations instead of commands. Victoria began to leave the office earlier some nights, choosing to build a life beyond work. Ethan came home in time to read Lily a bedtime story, to help with homework, to sit beside her on the couch and feel present. The change was not dramatic or perfect, but it was enough to breathe again. Lily noticed too. She noticed that her father laughed more, that his eyes softened, that the house felt warmer somehow. One night, as Ethan tucked her in, she wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered that she liked this version of him. Ethan held her a little longer than usual, letting gratitude wash through him. Life continued to test them. There were still hard days, still moments of doubt. But Ethan had learned something powerful. He had learned that boundaries were not selfish, that speaking truth did not make him weak, that being an adult did not mean enduring pain in silence. He had learned that sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is say they cannot do this anymore. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own struggles or gave you hope that change is possible, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the people who need them most. Before the ending, we have a special request for you to comment below and share one moment in your life when speaking up changed everything, or when you wish you had. On a quiet evening months later, Ethan stood at his window watching Lily play in the fading light, her laughter carrying through the air like a promise. He knew life would never be easy, but he also knew it could be honest. Somewhere in an office not far away, Victoria turned off her computer and went home, thinking about balance and the people who made success meaningful. Two lives had shifted that night, not because of power or fear, but because one exhausted single father finally chose himself and his child. And in that choice, something gentle and lasting was born, a reminder that even in the hardest moments, courage can still change everything.